So today, I want to talk about contentment because I really feel like contentment is probably my favorite word. I just love the feeling of that word, contentment. It's such a beautiful, beautiful vibration, what that word is and what it means. And so I want to start my talk with a story. And it's a wonderful story. You may have heard it. It's an old folk story, kind of an old religious folk story. But it's called The Parable of the Long Spoons. Anybody heard it? The Parable of the Long Spoons. Well, there once was a spiritual aspirant, and he wanted to understand the concept of heaven and hell. He didn't understand this concept fully of heaven and hell that seems to exist in some form in just about every religion. So he really prayed for that, and Spirit granted him a vision, a really, really powerful vision. He prayed for it, and he received this vision. He was graced with a vision. And so in his experience, he first traversed into a hell realm. He went to a hell realm, and he arrived there at the hell realm. And once he was there, he beheld a horrifying sight. And the sight was that row after row, there were all these tables. They were arranged with all this delicious, sumptuous food. And the people that were sitting around the tables, though, were all in pain. And they were in excruciating pain, and they were starving, and they were emaciated, and they were moaning in terrible hunger. And as he came closer, he understood the predicament. Well, the predicament was that every person had a long spoon, and the spoon was full of food, but their elbows had these long wooden slats, and they couldn't bend them. They couldn't bend their elbows to get the food to their mouths. So the man just felt so heartbroken, watching these people in their incredible suffering as they had that beautiful food so near and they couldn't consume it. So then he was taken to a heaven realm. And he was really surprised to see the same setting. There were all these long tables, and there was just this buffet of the most gorgeous, sumptuous food you could ever imagine. Same thing he'd seen in hell. But in contrast to hell, the people in heaven were sitting and they were contentedly talking, and they looked super healthy, and they were really happy, and they were glowing, and they were obviously satiated, right, from their sumptuous meal. And so as he came closer, he was amazed to discover that here too, they had their elbows slatted on these long wooden slats that prevented them from bending their elbows. So he wondered, how are they eating? How are they managing to eat? So as he watched, a woman picked up her spoon and she dug it into that delicious ambrosia, and she leaned across the table and she fed the person on the other side of the table. And the recipient of that kindness was deeply touched and thanked her and returned the favor by dipping her spoon in and leaning across the table and feeding her. And the man was overcome with profound understanding that heaven and hell offer the same circumstances and conditions, and that the critical difference is in the way that people treat each other. So he ran back to hell. He ran back to hell with the good news. And he ran up to one of the men that were starving, and he said, "You don't have to go hungry, right? Use your spoon to feed your neighbor, and he'll surely return the favor and feed you." And the starving man snapped back, "You expect me to feed that detestable man sitting across the table? I would rather starve than give him the pleasure of eating." And then the man understood more deeply. He understood more deeply. He gained the wisdom, and he realized love only requires one skill. These people with love in their hearts learned early on to feed one another, to take care of one another. And so conversely, those that were consumed with greed and selfishness, they propagated suffering, and they starved. And they not only starved of food, but they starved of love. So what's the moral of the story? Feed your neighbor. Love your neighbor. Generosity creates generosity. Thank you. I love that. Unselfishness, selflessness. Yeah. What else? Life provides you what you need. You guys are writing the talk. You're hitting all my points for the next 10 pages. Yes. Yes. That when we focus on helping others, we benefit ourselves, right? And we create more fulfilling community. If we cooperate in a way that takes care of all beings and all life, we create heaven on earth. That's all I have to say. It's basically the golden rule, isn't it? That story is the golden rule in story form. And they call the golden rule ethics of reciprocity. I love that. The ethics of reciprocity. That's so good, right? There's a beautiful poster. I don't know, I haven't really looked around, but I would expect it to be in here. But there's a beautiful interfaith poster that has the golden rule from every religion. Have you seen that? I had it in my first church, my Oroville church, on the wall, big poster. And I just love it because there is a version of the golden rule in pretty much every faith. And there's one I really like. This is the Taoist version of the golden rule. Regard your neighbor's gain as your own gain, and your neighbor's loss as your own loss. And that's true if we truly feel oneness, if we truly experience oneness. How can it be other than that? That our neighbor's gain is our gain, our neighbor's loss is our loss. In Judaism, it says, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. This is the whole of the Torah. All the rest is commentary. The Baha'i faith, it says, lay not on any soul a load that you would not wish to be laid upon you, and desire not for anyone the things you would not desire for yourself. Well, that's good. So if we humans could live this golden rule, we'd have only goodwill. We'd have only goodwill towards all beings. There's a beloved Buddhist master that lived in the 8th century, Shantideva. You've probably read his works. His key work was A Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way and Life, and the Dalai Lama quotes him all the time. He loves his work. He has such wisdom in his writings. So I want to read you some of his words that go so well with this message. He wrote, what need is there to say more? The childish work for their own benefit. The Buddhas work for the benefit of others. Just look at the difference between them. If I do not exchange my happiness for the suffering of others, I shall not attain the state of Buddhahood. And even in samsara, I shall have no real joy. The source of all misery in the world lies in thinking of oneself. The source of all happiness lies in thinking of others. It's so beautiful. It's profound wisdom, you know. And I think it's needed in our world right now. Because, there's such a fulfillment that comes in helping others. It's a feeling like nothing else. It's really purifying. That comes, in the acting for the well-being of others in a selfless way. It's beautiful to see, and I see it in all of you. I see it in this community so much. People that go and serve food to the unhoused, people that help people move, people that volunteer on Sunday, taking care of an elderly parent, taking care of a child that needs housing. There's so many ways we can share compassion with others. I mean, it doesn't have to be saving the world. It can be simple, like reaching out to somebody and sending a text and saying, how are you doing? How are you doing? I miss you. Come back to church. Yeah, just a simple card with words of appreciation goes a long way. I love that old school thing where you write cards by hand. Does anybody do that anymore? I do. I know. I love that. I love to get it. It's nothing like it. So, when I observe the world at large and I read the news about tax cuts for billionaires and that's paid for by cuts to people's health care, or cuts to food assistance, people who depend on SNAP. I know people personally, and I love people personally that depend on that. I feel it's an expression of an illness in our society, a dis-ease of greed. And greed is something that it's really important to look at what is that and what causes that. Because I feel like it's out picturing, and it's the cause of such unnecessary suffering. It's unnecessary. It's kind of the opposite of the golden rule. It's like, to regard our neighbor's loss as our own loss. It's kind of the opposite of that, There's a teaching, again, from the Tao Te Ching. I'm sourcing Lao Tzu quite a bit this morning, that reads, "There is no crime greater than having too many desires. There is no disaster greater than not being content. There is no misfortune greater than being covetous." Wow, that's fascinating. I've really been contemplating that. In the Buddhist and Taoist traditions, they talk about hungry ghosts. Have you heard about hungry ghosts? They talk about them as spirits that are trapped in a cycle of insatiable desire and suffering. And they're often depicted, they have a giant belly and a tiny little mouth. So like they're got this big belly to fill, and they're so hungry, but their mouth is like teensy tiny. And they're believed to be reborn in the realm of suffering, kind of like that hell realm with the long spoons, because of their past actions of greed, attachment, and negative emotions. And so they wander around, and they're always hungry. They're like this ghost that's always hungry. And so I sometimes feel like people that are ever needing more and more and more and more and more, whether it's more and more money or more and more power, or needing more and more fame or more attention, or more and more alcohol, whatever it is, so anything that we're craving, and we can't seem to get enough of, that is kind of like a hungry ghost quality. And the people that are stuck in that mode don't have the wisdom to realize that happiness doesn't come from those things that they're craving and chasing, and that's why no matter how much they get, they're never at peace, they're never happy. And so the Buddhists talk about that as delusion as to what makes us happy. So in Buddhism, they instruct spiritual aspirants to pray for hungry ghosts, to become free of those afflictions, to pray that they're able to escape the realm of delusion and find the Dharma and live a life that leads to awakening. So we can keep this in mind and intentionally work to cultivate and help others cultivate a spirit of generosity. Was that you, Devorah? Yes, that's the key. And a spirit of service in the name of love and compassion, a spirit of kindness, like that beautiful poem Anna read. And recognize and call out greed and selfishness, and not with anger, not from anger, and not even from judgment, but from a place of seeing that is not the way to peace. Just a place of seeing that's not the way to happiness. That's not the way to freedom, right? Contentment, as I said, it's such a beautiful feeling. Why is that? Why is that? Because it's having enough, right? It's having enough. And it's satisfaction, right? It's deep fulfillment. And it's satisfaction with simple things, right? And it's just a beautiful feeling that nothing is lacking. Such a beautiful feeling. I think for me, the biggest lesson in losing my house and every single possession in the campfire, the Paradise Fire in 2018, was that I realized, and I thought I already knew, but I think I had to be put to the test, or at least I was put to the test. I realized that the things are not what bring me happiness. Yes, I didn't like losing my piano that I'd had since I was 17. That was the hardest thing. But I did realize that what really makes me happy anymore is feeling the connection to the life that gives all life, is feeling ever connected to that and feeling connected to that vertically in beings, in human beings, in animal beings, in the earth and in nature. You know, so I really realized on a deep level, I don't really care that much about stuff. I mean, I don't have much stuff now. I've got 2 chairs, but they're great chairs. I really like them. They're really fun to sit in. So nothing, I just realized that it is love shared. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I think, wrote that. At the end, what really mattered was how much love we were able to give and receive, right? You know, Ernest Holmes, he was the founder of religious science, and he said, he was talking about how greed is the fear of lack. It's a lot of times it's unconscious. And he said that the fear of lack is nothing more than the belief that God does not and will not supply us with whatever we need. And, you know, so fear of lack is really a lack of faith in the abundance of life itself. But when you walk in nature and you see the abundance, you see how many seeds are on that maple tree. Oh my goodness. There's so much abundance in nature if we live in harmony with it, right? And it's beautifully expressed in the scripture from Matthew 6:26. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? St. Francis, you know, he put a lot of deep wisdom into that prayer for peace, but the line I really love is, it is in giving we receive. It is in giving we receive, just like the people in heaven with the long spoons, right? Feeding one another. I remember I talk about my time with Alma, my trips to India a lot, but with Alma, you know, being her student for 20 years and going to India so much, it was all about watching her more than it was really, it wasn't that much that she ever said to me. It was watching how she lived and what she demonstrated. And you know, in India, we would make food every day to feed at least a few thousand, and then it grew to 4,000, and then 6,000, and then some nights it'd be 10,000 for Devi Baba. And my job, one of my jobs besides singing, excuse me, speaking of singing, I've been doing a lot of that. But my job was to chop veggies in the kitchen and roll chapatis. And we're talking about a lot of chapatis. We'd be rolling chapatis for hours. And so we, you know, Amma would make sure that all these people got fed for free, you know. And every day they do that, and they do it to this day. And she's got hospitals where people come for free or very little, all over the place, state-of-the-art hospitals. She's got colleges, she's got orphanages. And of course, she hugs people, you know, pretty much 24/7 every day, and she listens to their sorrows, and she wipes their tears, and she's just there and gives them that incredibly personal blessing to hug them. And you know, I think early on she was just hugging maybe 500 people a day, but now it's like it's 50,000, like on her birthday. But she won't stop, and she won't turn people away. And she, you know, my favorite quote from her was, she said, "I want to live my life like a burning stick of incense, giving the fragrance of love to the world." And that's how I want to live my life. That's my inspiration. One of the things when you walk that I was so amazed by, I walked by her room one time when I was first there, and I was so curious, like, what's her room? You know, the door was open, so I was kind of peeking in. And it was like 100 square feet, and it was this little single bed and a concrete floor. And I don't know, a few pieces of furniture, and that's how she lives. And it was just a teaching. Everything she does is a teaching. Everything is a teaching. And I really love that teaching. I don't know where I read it, but live simply so others can simply live. Isn't that a nice That's so beautiful. That's really a teaching about being content, right, and serving others. There's a Buddhist meditation practice. It's a contemplative reflection practice where we ask ourselves, we actually meditate. We ask a question and then just meditate on the answer. And a few of the questions are, how can greed lead to suffering? What are some of the things we can do to overcome greed? How can we discover contentment with what we have? I think that's really, really important. How can we discover contentment with what we have? And then they also they offer a visualization practice where you visualize giving all your possessions away. I don't have to visualize that. It really helped in a way because it freed me. It liberated me losing everything, you know, and now I live lightly and I love it. So, gosh, a couple of days ago, somebody reminded me of a book, a beautiful book that came out during the COVID era. Somebody gave it to me after I lost all my books in the fire, and I don't know where it is. I think it's in storage or something, but it's the sweetest book. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Have you read it? It's by Charlie Mackesy, and it was made into a film, which I haven't seen. We're going to watch that. You got it right. But it's about a boy who's looking for a home, and he's never had a home. And he meets this mole, and they just strike up this incredibly sweet friendship. And they have these amazing, deep conversations, like while they're walking through a field or sitting on a log or they're up in a tree together. And at one point, the mole asks the boy what he wants to be when he grows up, and he answers, do you know? Kind. I want to be kind. A little later, the mole asks the boy what his favorite saying is, if he has one, and he says, oh, yes. And he asks him what it is. He says, at first, if at first you don't succeed, eat cake. And the mole says, does that work? And he goes, every time. In another and it's so cute because I did see a piece of the animated. The mole keeps getting a cake to give to the boy, but he eats it before he can give it to him. Another conversation, the mole asks the boy, is your glass half empty or half full? And the boy ponders it, and then he answers, I think I'm grateful to have a glass. I love that. That's so beautiful. And later the boy asks the mole, what do you think success is? And the mole answers, to love. To love. And then one of my favorite lines comes from the horse. They meet a fox and then a horse later. And the horse has some wisdom. He says, the truth is, everyone is winging it. Do you ever feel that way? I do. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, I'll be going along and I just feel so on track and so aligned and I'm just doing my dharma, right? And everything feels so meaningful. But then I have days I just feel askew and I feel like I am just winging it and I am such a fallible human being and I hope nobody notices, right? And I wonder if I'm making any difference, you know? It's like humanness. So there's a scene in the movie where the boy picks up the mole, and he's looking at the mole, and the mole says, "I'm so small," and the boy responds, "Yes, but you make a huge difference." We all need to hear that. We all need to hear that sometimes. Another moment, the boy asks the mole, "What do we do when our hearts hurt? What do we do when our hearts hurt?" And the mole says, we wrap them with friendship, shared tears, and time, till they wake hopeful and happy again. Love that. So, my dear friends, let us remember kindness. Let us explore contentment. What brings us contentment? Let us feed each other. Let us love each other well. Let us take care of each other, and let us work together to heal the dis-ease of greed. We can make the difference. We can be mirror reflections of generosity, right? We can live the golden rule. And when we're feeling small, we can remember another quote, my other favorite quote from Mama, who says, don't worry about all the darkness and suffering in the world. Just light your one candle and let it shine. Just light your one candle. Thank you all.